Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here with Mock Draft 3.0. That is right. We are getting closer and closer to the NFL draft, so it is time for me to drop another mock draft for you all. And in this mock draft, we're switching things up a little bit because at the very top of the draft, I believe some things may have changed since the last time I did one. So I kind of want to go through some of the what ifs if those things come out to play. So keep in mind, these mock drafts are all about playing out different scenarios. I will not drop my final predictions until the week before the draft. So this is not me predicting anything. This is not where I believe people are going to go. This is just another what if scenario if certain guys fall into certain areas. So remember that when you're commenting down below, just remember that I said that here at the beginning of the video. But before I jump into all the great information, I gotta remind everybody that we're partnered with Manscaped again. So our friends over at Manscaped are gonna be giving you all 20% off your entire purchase if you use code word headliners at checkout, and you're also gonna get free shipping as well. So if you need to get prepared for the beach, for short season, whatever it may be, Manscaped is the way to do that. Manscaped.com, code word headliners, 20% off all of their great products and free shipping. But enough of that, enough of the small talk and all those other things. It is time that we jump right into it. So let's throw it up on the board. Pick number 1. Jacksonville is on the clock again this season at number 1 overall. And I'm going to be going with Evan Neal, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Now, Evan Neal, okay, is not my number 1 offensive tackle. He's very good. He's like 1B, okay? Ikem Ekwonu is number 1A for me. But I believe Evan Neal, if Jacksonville were to go with a offensive tackle here, it is going to be Neal who they go with. Now, why have I switched it up from Aiden Hutchinson to Evan Neal? Well, I'm doing that because their starting center just retired this past week, and their offensive line is already a huge issue. So their starting center is now gone. Offensive line is already an issue. You invested the first overall pick in Trevor Lawrence last year, and you have a guy that many thought to be maybe not a generational talent, but one of the best quarterback talents coming out of the draft in quite some time last year. If you got him, you got to protect him. There's no reason why you should not have an offensive line that can keep him up, keep him safe, and give him time to throw. You've given him weapons, now give him an offensive line. At pick number 2, it's going to be the Detroit Lions going with Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. Now, Willis is a guy that I have finally got on board with going here at number 2 overall. And I believe Aiden Hutchinson here at number 2 overall would be just as good, either of them. But I'm kind of falling in line with this Malik Willis thought process now because the Lions coached him and they were up close and personal with him at the Senior Bowl. His stock has continued to climb since really the Senior Bowl and then the Combine. He had a very impressive pro day as well. His stock just keeps going up, and he's kind of solidifying himself as the number 1 quarterback in this class, or, you know, for some people, number 2 right next to Sam Howell, or however you think. There's kind of everything's up in the air with the quarterback position in this year's draft. But for me, go Malik Willis here, and then the Lions could end up going with an edge rusher later on. Maybe they trade up in the first to do that. There's potential that they trade this pick and end up moving back. And if they do, it could be somebody coming up here to get Aiden Hutchinson or Kevon Thibodeau. And if they do get up here to get Hutchinson or Thibs, then they're able to drop back and maybe still get Willis a few picks lower. Now, they wouldn't be able to move past Carolina, I don't think, because if they were to move past Carolina, that could end up meaning Carolina would be able to take Willis. So if they move back beyond Carolina, then at that point, I do believe that Willis would end up going to Carolina. But we will see how those things play out. And number 3 overall, the Houston Texans going with Aiden Hutchinson, edge rusher out of Michigan. Houston gets a huge gift here. Now, they need an upgrade to the defense, or excuse me, the offensive line, just as bad as they do the defensive line. But with Aiden Hutchinson here and the presumed number 1 overall offensive tackle, Evan Neal, off the board in this mock, Aiden Hutchinson falling here would be a great gift for them and a huge upgrade to the defensive line. They should thank Jacksonville and Detroit both for passing on him. The Jets at number 4 overall go with Thibodeau, edge out of Oregon. The Jets need some help on the offensive line as well, but they've spent some picks and some money there as of recent. So give those guys a little bit more of a chance when you've got Thibodeau sitting here waiting for you. I mean, your head coach is a defensive guy. He's going to be salivating at the fact that Thibs falls all the way down here to number 4. Now, for some reason, Willis doesn't go up here and Hutchinson and Thibodeau go in the top 3. Then I do believe the Jets end up going with a guy like Ekwonu here instead of Thibodeau. But instead, Ekwonu falls to number 5 for the New York Giants offensive tackle out of NC State. If you're going to believe in Daniel Jones and you think that he is still the answer at quarterback, then you have got to protect him. And even if he doesn't end up being the answer at quarterback heading into next year, then you have got somebody that you have brought in to protect whoever the next young quarterback is. So Ekwonu going here, number 5 to the New York Giants. Great pick for them. Carolina Panthers. It does feel more and more to me like Sam Howell would be their choice at quarterback, potentially even if Willis was there, because Sam Howell might be the most pro-ready quarterback. Now, there are some people out there who still doubt Sam Howell and don't think that he's nearly good enough to be up here. But really, their kind of pushback on that is his numbers last year and how he regressed. Well, he lost 2 of his wide receivers. He lost 2 of his running backs. He lost an offensive lineman in the draft. He lost a lot of guys. Any quarterback is going to regress when you lose that much talent in the challenging ACC. So Sam Howell falling back last season doesn't really surprise many of us who still watch the tape and see some of the things that could make him a very good passer. He's got a lot of those. He's got a lot of those intangibles. He's got the accuracy. He's got the feet. He's got the things that you need to be a starter day one in the NFL. Carolina missing on basically every single quarterback this offense, I think, kind of forces them into this pick. Now, the only way this changes is if they were to bring in like Baker Mayfield or something like that. I don't think that's going to happen, especially before the draft. But they go with Sam Howell here. They upgrade the quarterback position. This is a good team. They're just a quarterback and really an offensive tackle away from being an even better team and competing in that division. Tavon Walker is going to go number 7 overall to the New York Giants, edge rusher out of Georgia. There's some people who believe Tavon Walker should be the number 2 pick in the draft. There's some people that believe he is actually number 2 behind Aiden Hutchinson. He is going to get the nod here above Jermaine Johnson for me because he is a little bit more pro-ready with the technique. And the New York Giants absolutely win the top of the first round if this were to play out the way it is, because they get a stud at offensive tackle and a stud at edge. They really redo a lot of what they needed to on the offensive defensive lines. They get a lot stronger on the ground, and then they're able to move on from there. Now, at number 8 for the Atlanta Falcons, this is going to be an interesting one. And again, this is not what I fully believe will happen, but it is something I want to play out. And it's the Atlanta Falcons using their number 8 pick to bring in Drake London, wide receiver out of USC. Now, Drake London is not my wide receiver 1 in this class, all right? I am not saying that he is the top wide receiver in this class by any means, but I believe that the Atlanta Falcons really need a guy with some of the traits that Drake London have over guys like a Garrett Wilson or over guys like a Chris Olave. And I do believe that Drake London may be a little bit safer than Treylon Burks in some areas. Treylon Burks could end up going here as well. You can kind of flip-flop these guys. But Drake London is a guy that continues to kind of go up the board for me a little bit in terms of things that we're seeing and hearing. Just different reports, things from GMs and that nature. Drake London, I believe, will fit the Atlanta Falcons the best, because they're going to need a guy that kind of has some of those alpha traits that can play on the outside. And then you've got obviously Kyle Pitts that can play in the slot, and then maybe have somebody else on the other side to kind of help with those things. Obviously, losing quite a bit of players this offseason at the wide receiver position has really hurt them. So they need to kind of rebuild that. So I think they go with more of an alpha type. I love Garrett Wilson. I think he's my number one wide receiver in the draft, but I think he's a guy that can move inside and outside a little bit. And I think that could make him very, very dangerous. And I don't know if that fits the Falcons best, because you've already got Kyle Pitts, who's going to play inside quite a bit. So I wonder if they go with a guy like Drake London, a guy that is a little bit more of that possession guy that plays on the outside. Again, not my wide receiver one in the class. Please do not blow up the comments about how you don't like Drake London and how I'm crazy for having him here. I'm not saying he's my wide receiver one. This is a scenario I'm playing out where I think Atlanta could be looking towards a Drake London instead of a Garrett Wilson. Seattle Seahawks, they got this pick from Denver, obviously, in that Russell Wilson trade. They bring in Derek Stingley Jr., cornerback out of LSU. Seattle knows they need to redo the defense, and they really need to have a stronger defense if they're going to give Drew Lock and that offense any chance to win this season and not put a ton of pressure on them. Stingley's going to be a huge upgrade on the outside. He's a guy that can play man-to-man, zone. He can really do everything you want to. He's as solid as they come quarterback-wise in this draft. At number 10, the New York Jets, their pick here from Seattle, Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. This is the furthest that I could see Kyle Hamilton falling. And if the New York Jets get Kyle Hamilton at number 10 after getting Kayvon Thibodeau at number 4, they are my first round winners by far. I don't think there's anything that anybody could do to outplay that. That is such an upgrade on the defense that it automatically, in my opinion, if Zach Wilson takes a step forward this year, will make them contenders in the East. And quite honestly, it could end up putting them over New England. I know there's some New England fans out there that may not agree with me, but that's going to be a heck of an addition to this New York Jets defense. And if they can take a step forward on offense, this is going to be huge. Kyle Hamilton falling to number 10 would be a huge gift. He's my number 1 overall player. You hear some people talking about safety, that you don't really draft safeties high in the draft. It's positional value type of thing, but Kyle Hamilton is more than just a safety. At number 11, the Washington football team, now the Washington Commanders, take Garrett Wilson, wide receiver out of Ohio State. It could be any of the top quarterback or wide receivers left at this point, but I just think Garrett Wilson really fits Washington a lot better. Gives him an opportunity again, like I talked about a minute ago. You've got Terry McLaurin on the outside. Now you can do some different things with Garrett Wilson in the slot on the outside, moving him around a little bit and letting him really win in the best scenarios possible and putting him in very good matchups. I think Garrett Wilson would absolutely thrive in that type of an environment. Number 12, the Minnesota Vikings, needing to work on the interior of the defensive line. Go with Jordan Davis, interior defensive lineman out of Georgia. Patrick Peterson coming back to the Vikings at cornerback just recently, which is good news for them. It makes that cornerback position just a little less of a must-have in the first round. So for me here, you could go cornerback. I could see a Sauce Gardner going at this point, or an Andrew Booth, depending on who they have at that kind of cornerback 2 position. But looking at Jordan Davis here, I think he's a guy that can really make an impact in a division that he's going to need to cause some pressure, and he's going to have to help stop the run. I mean, you've got A.J. Dillon, you've got Aaron Jones, you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got David Montgomery. Having a guy being able to stuff the middle of the line is great, but Jordan Davis is more than that. This guy is an athlete. For as big as he is, he also has the ability to get to the outside to disrupt screens, track down running backs, help in some of those swing passes and things of that nature. The Houston Texans, with their second first-round pick, getting another one from Cleveland here in the Deshaun Watson trade. This is where they go to now help out the offensive line, bringing in Trevor Penning, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. This was a Senior Bowl and a combine standout. Penning continues to kind of move up boards at this point. I believe This is great for Houston. They get that game-changing edge rusher up top, and then they get a guy, Trevor Penning, who a lot of people feel like is the number 3 offensive tackle off the board behind Aquanu and Neal in this draft. There's a few people that might think it's Charles Cross instead. Both of these guys very, very good. I do like Penning a lot, though. The Baltimore Ravens at number 14 lost their longtime starting center in free agency in this year's free agency pool. So Tyler Linderbaum, center out of Iowa, comes in. This is a guy that people are saying is a generational talent at the center position and will be in the NFL for a very, very long time. Baltimore, it feels like they probably don't need to move up to get Linderbaum, that he would end up making it here. And this might not be the sexiest pick in the world if you're a Ravens fan listening to this, but it is crucial for helping that run game with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards being back this year. It is critical to protecting Lamar Jackson, who's coming into a contract year and is going to demand a very large bill. You're going to need a guy to help up front, and Linderbaum is definitely going to be the one that helps that. At number 15, the Philadelphia Eagles, they get their first pick of their 3 first-round picks here at 15. They're going to go with Jermaine Johnson, edge rusher out of Florida State. And then at number 16, their second of 3 first-round picks, they go with Sauce Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. Jermaine Johnson, to me, is a Brian Burns-like player. Great traits, great athletic ability, just needs some work on that technique. He can rotate in and out on that defensive line to start to kind of get him really up to seasoning with some of those older guys that are there, and then really kind of get coached up on some of those things that he really needs to clean up. And then Sauce Gardner, some people think that he is the cornerback 1 in this draft. I don't have any issues with people who think that. This dude is absolutely amazing. Has only allowed 1 touchdown in coverage his entire college career, only allowed 1 pass. I believe it was further than 20 yards this past season. Continue to reinforce this defense for Philadelphia. Maddox gets to stay in the slot, and then Gardner can help in coverage opposite of Slay. The Los Angeles Chargers stay on the interior offensive line with Zion Johnson out of Boston College. A turnover on the offensive line and poor play on the interior last means that this is the most pressing issue. We have to protect Justin Herbert at all costs. I know there's some people that want to have a wide receiver taken here, and I really don't understand why. You've got Guyton still, you've got Keenan Allen, you've got Mike Williams that you just re-signed to a long-term deal. I don't really think you need to go out there and spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver. At that point, it's more of an embarrassment of riches. And yes, it will give somebody, it will give, Justin Herbert another person to throw to. But look at the Cincinnati Bengals this past season, right? They made a pick on Jamar Chase, which was great, right? I mean, that has worked out very, very well. But they made that pick of Jamar Chase. They didn't address the offensive line at all. And frickin' Joey B just got killed all over the place this season. And really the reason that they lost the Super Bowl is because of that offensive line. So instead of giving Justin Herbert another weapon, protect him on the inside because you already have so many good weapons, and then go from there. Now, if they do draft like a Chris Olave, Treylon Burks type from here, I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. The offensive line isn't awful. But dear God, I don't want to see Justin Herbert taking as many hits this year as what Joe Burrow did this past season. The New Orleans Saints, if he makes it all the way down here, Chris Olave, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think this would be a huge compliment to Michael Thomas, reuniting these Ohio State wide receivers. Michael Thomas obviously is that guy that's, more of a slant route guy, some of those shorter passes, winning with his footwork. Chris Olave is a guy that's going to beat you kind of all over the place. He can go down the field, win those deep routes for you, be a guy that can stretch the field a little bit on the other side of Michael Thomas and really help out in that aspect and give Jameis Winston another weapon on offense. The Philadelphia Eagles, with their 3rd first-round pick, get themselves a wide receiver to help out Treylon Burks. And again, I am thinking that, Treylon Burks is a good fit here. If Drake London doesn't go before they get to him, I think Drake London would be a good fit here. You need some size with these wide receivers. I mean, you've got guys like Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith who are a little undersized. Now you need a guy that can play big on the outside, that can go up and win some of those jump balls against some of the top cornerbacks in the league, that can play a little bit stronger with them. And I think Traylon Burks would be an excellent addition for Jalen Hurts, a guy who does have some accuracy issues. You know, if he has some underthrown balls or if he has to, you know, just kind of throw it up for his wide receivers, Traylon Burks is a guy that can go on the outside and help win those. I like that fit. Move Jalen Reagor to the slot full time. I think that would help him out a lot. And some of his inconsistencies from this past year, I think that makes him better. So for me, Traylon Burks would just be a perfect fit on the outside for the Philadelphia Eagles. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 20 overall, bringing Charles Cross, offensive tackle out of Mississippi State. They need help on the offensive line, and they need it bad. Staying put and still getting Cross would end up being a major win for them, but they really need to be focused on that offensive line this year. It is 100% the biggest weakness on this team, and if you really expect Mitchell Trubisky to win games for you, you're going to have to give him some time, and you're going to have to give Najee Harris some more room to run. He's already going to be facing stacked boxes as it is. He is going to need to have some of those opened up, and Charles Cross will help out with that. The New England Patriots continue to work on that defense, bringing in Andrew Booth Jr. at 21 overall, cornerback out of Clemson. Wide receiver has really been the talk of the Pats this offseason, but they lost J.C. Jackson. They lost Stephen Gilmore. Belichick is going to want to help his defensive backs, and by bringing in Andrew Booth, that is going to be the best way possible to do that. Unfortunately, they do need some help at wide receiver as well, but they're going to have to hope that help comes later, because they're going to have a guy to help stop just some of the juggernaut offenses that we could see in the AFC this year. At number 22, all the way down here falls what may be the wide receiver one in this class, Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Green Bay gets a huge gift here with Jameson Williams, and he is the wide receiver one for many people. Coming off of that ACL tear, not exactly sure when he will be ready, but he will be ready this year. So he does fall a little bit as some of these teams shoot for a guy that's not coming off injury. Green Bay here, they absolutely can't afford, but can really afford to wait, because when you got a guy like this and you fall and you just traded your wide receiver one, and really the wide receiver depth on your team right now is extremely poor, you get Jameson Williams, you wait for him to get healthy, and he becomes your automatic wide receiver one, the next Devontae Adams for this team. The Arizona Cardinals at 23 overall go with George Karlaftis, edge out of Purdue. He has fallen quite a bit. A lot of people thought he was a top 10 pick earlier in the year, but he continues to fall after just, I wouldn't say poor performances in the combine and things of that nature, but he's chosen not to do some certain drills, and I think it's, affected the way some people look at him. But I think just his motor and his drive and the power that he has does land him in the first round. Chandler Jones is gone. J.J. Watt has been consistently injured. They're going to need to help this. They're going to need to be able to help this defense. They're going to have to get after guys like Matthew Stafford. They're going to have to be able to do that to compete out there in the AFC West. The Cardinals bring in a guy to do that in George Karlaftis. The Dallas Cowboys go on the interior of the offensive line with Kenyon Green. Dallas needs to get better on the interior to help keep Dak healthy. Their only chance of making it back to the playoffs and potentially winning this year is giving Dak more time and allowing this offense a little bit more time to function properly. The Buffalo Bills at cornerback, I could see them moving up. To try and get one of the other guys. But really, if they were to stay put down here, getting a guy like Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington, is still going to be a great pick this late in the draft. If Buffalo wants to make it to the Super Bowl, they are going to have some more depth and some more help at the cornerback position, and Trent McDuffie is going to be somebody to absolutely help out with that, a guy that could be a lockdown corner in the NFL. He's going to offer a lot of help this late in the draft. Again, when I do one of my next mock drafts and I start including trades more, Buffalo could be one of the teams that moves up. The Tennessee Titans at number 26 take Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia. You're really splitting hairs with him and Devin Lloyd, but Dean's ability to cover the whole field with speed and vision is going to be much needed in a very fast-paced, offensive-friendly AFC conference. Nakobe Dean, for me, fits that bill of being a guy that can make plays all over the place. I give him the edge here. The Tampa Bay Bucks go with an interior defensive lineman out of Georgia, Devontae Wyatt. Now, this is a guy that a lot of people think could be like a top 15 pick. The Bucs are losing members on the front of the line, some key members on the front of the line, and I think Wyatt could be a huge addition. Todd Bowles taking over at head coach, more of a defensive-minded guy. Would not be surprised if they do kind of try to look towards that defense a little bit more to keep it functioning at a high level. At number 28 overall, the Green Bay Packers go with 2 first-round wide receivers, bringing in Jahan Dotson, wide receiver out of Penn State. They've skipped on the position for so many years, it feels like, when there's other guys they could have taken to really help Aaron Rodgers. Now, all of a sudden, they go with 2 in the first round. You kind of have to at this point because you don't have anybody else there to really dominate. Jahan Dotson is a guy, a field stretcher that can come in and play right away. You just signed Aaron Rodgers to big money. He needs weapons. He's lost MVS and Devontae Adams this offseason. Jahan Dotson is going to be a field stretcher, a guy that is a little bit more like Deshaun Jackson. He's going to have some up and down performances, but he's going to have some really big plays, especially from Aaron Rodgers. When obviously Jameson Williams gets healthy, now he fills that role on the other side, and now this offense looks much more dangerous than it does right now. The Kansas City Chiefs and their pick that they got from Miami, that Miami got from San Francisco, they get Daxton Hill, safety out of Michigan. I think this is a great fit for this defense because Daxton Hill kind of fits that Tyrann Mathieu role that he played, where he could go in coverage, he can go in slot, he can go out on this edge, he can kind of play like a hybrid linebacker position and attack the quarterback. A lot of different things that Mathieu did while he was there in KC, Hill can also do, and I think he really fits that role well, and he would be a great pick here for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they go back to back and they stay on the defensive side of the ball, going with Devin Lloyd, linebacker out of Utah. I would be surprised if Lloyd does fall this far, but based on some of the things that I've played out here, because the linebackers go a little bit later in this first round, Devin Lloyd gets down here to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think that they more than welcome that draft pick. For the Cincinnati Bengals, they've done a lot of work on the offensive line. I don't think that they need to do it anymore in this draft. The only other area that I look at and I say they could get a little bit better at is that cornerback position, where that kind of became a crack in the armor as they were working their way. Some big plays given up where they couldn't stop certain players. Kahir Elam, cornerback out of Florida. This is a guy that could bring depth right away and then take over as a starter if there's any inconsistencies or an injury later on. And the Detroit Lions with the last pick in the first round, kind of a fun one to mock here. David Ajabu, edge rusher out of Michigan. I mean, this was a guy that was a top 10, top 15 prospect before he blew his Achilles out the other day. Now, trying to come back from an Achilles injury on the defensive side of the ball is not nearly as difficult as it is on the offensive side of the ball. And a lot of people just saw, Cam Akers make his way back from an Achilles injury and end up getting back by the end of the season. David Ajabu, a lot of people are saying that he is kind of also on that 6-month time frame. So for Detroit, if you're looking towards the future at this point and you grab David Ajabu down here at the end of the first round, I think this is still good for them right here. I think this is great value for him. He ends up coming back sometime this year. You work him back in slowly. And then next year, after the 2023 draft, when you're really kind of in a better position to win, David Ajabu is raring and ready to go. And that is what you need as the Detroit Lions. I think with that pick there, you look a little bit to the future, and that would be an excellent pick for that purpose. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, my mock draft 3.0 in the books for you. Leave a comment down below. Let me know about the pick that went to your favorite team. Again, this is not what I'm predicting. This is just, again, another kind of fun exercise to build out some different scenarios that I see happening within the NFL draft. This one, we played a little bit of a different one with Malik Willis going higher and Jacksonville going offensive tackle at number 1. We'll make some changes coming up here soon to mock draft 4.0 in the next couple of weeks. And then obviously right before the draft, I will get my final predictions out for you all to see. Make sure if you're new here to the Fantasy Headliners, you hit that subscribe button, you stick around, you catch all the great content this offseason. And as always, hit that like button for me if you appreciate the content. I'm going to get out of here. Y'all stay safe. Y'all stay healthy, and I will catch you on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.